Hello, everybody, and welcome to a Voices of Wrestling special presentation midway through this year's New Japan Pro Wrestling G1 Climax, the 25th G1 Climax here in 2015. Rob McCarron here, alongside via the interwebs with Joe Lanza and Rich Kraetsch of Voices of Wrestling. Rich and Joe. Rich, how are you doing today?
Doing well, doing well. Glad to talk to you here on this Sunday afternoon. But yeah, I'm excited. Finished my binge watching. I was on vacation for the first half of the G1 or whatever, so I've been watching about 7 shows in the past 2 days. So I'm a little G1'd out, but it's good. It's been rewarding, definitely, for doing it.
And Joe Lanza here with us as well, who reviewed Night 9 of the G1, which ended today for voicesofwrestling.com. Joe, how are you?
I'm fantastic, Rob.
That's the.
Truth be told, I woke up, about an hour ago, and I'm very cranky. But I will shake that off, and I will be a professional, and we will bang this out, and I will be very chipper by the end of this.
Because there's nothing to be cranky about, right?
There really isn't. I think this tournament is coming together very nicely. I'm enjoying every night of it, and as we talk about it, we will see the Joe Lanza trademark excitement come to the forefront.
Well, let's talk about this G1. Okay, we're halfway through. We've had 5 matches each of the A block. We've had 4 matches of the B block as we get a little day break here before it resumes with night 10 on Tuesday. Let's go around the one highlight. Like, what's been the biggest highlight? It could be a surprise. It could be what you expected to happen. But what's been the biggest highlight, Rich, so far the G1 to you this year?
There's a lot to choose from. I think for me, I'd probably go number 1 is just the kind of the reemergence of a few guys, and I'll sort of cheat here, and I won't do it as one, but kind of a collective, as the reemergence of a few guys like Naito, completely a guy that a lot of people had pretty much written off and just kind of said, he's just kind of there for the, we don't know what is going to happen with him. He's just going to kind of be there and do this or whatever. Then he debuts this new character, the new, apathetic asshole thing that he's got going or whatever. And it's taken the entire thing by storm. And it's like a guy now, he's got a nice little rally going. He's, people are legitimately being like, oh my God, he might actually win this thing. Another guy is Goto. He started off kind of a little soft during this G1. He's kind of an icy champ. So it's like, what are they going to do with him? And then recent days, they've kind of lit him on fire and put him on a whole different pedestal. And then Kota Ibushi is another guy who started the year off super hot. Sort of the past few months has just kind of been there. But man, to me, he's been my MVP. So I'd probably say the biggest moment for me is just Kota Ibushi just going out there almost every single night and every single time he has an opportunity and just knocking it out of the park, just completely having, to me, he's easily my MVP right now. Just having great matches, great character work, just everything that he's been doing has been fantastic, I thought.
Joe, your favorite so far of this G1?
My favorite wrestler so far?
Favorite anything? Match? What's been the highlight for you? Like,
well,
when you've gone through these shows, what are you looking forward to most because okay, this has so far been a winner?
I'll give you 2. I agree with Rich. Kota Ibushi has been the standout performer. I think he arguably has the 3 best matches of the tournament. He continues to pad his Wrestler of the Year resume, whether you're looking at from the Observer sort of definition of that or sort of the more, wider spread definition, whatever you consider your Wrestler of the Year. He's got to be in the conversation for any sort of award like that, and he's padding it here. And the other thing is Big Mike Elgin. I mean, this guy has to be talked about. I mean, it's no surprise to me because, I knew he'd come in here and I knew he'd do well, but he had so many detractors. And here's the thing with Big Mike Elgin, okay? This guy is having one hell of a tour because no one's saying anything bad about him. Even his biggest detractors have kept their mouths shut because he shut everybody up. You can't say anything bad about his performances. Right out of the gate with the tag match on night 1, and then right out of the gate with his first singles match on night 2. And I'll tell you, you've got to give, Okada a lot of credit because on both of those shows, he did a hell of a job, a selfless job, putting that guy over and putting his power moves over and getting him over with crowds who had no idea who he was. Now, ever since those first 2 shows, if you watch these Elgin matches, his power stuff is over like crazy. Japanese fans are popping big for his power stuff, and he's starting to get over. By the end of this tour, this guy, he's going to be to me, he's been so good on this tour that you really have to consider he may have earned himself a spot on this roster. That's how good he's been.
Yeah, he's been fantastic. I think it's funny that before this tournament happened, when we were dissecting the lineups, a lot of people were disappointed that Elgin was in it, and like, why is Michael Elgin even in this? I'm not looking forward to any of this. And then with Shinsuke Nakamura's injury, we didn't get Elgin and Nakamura, and it went from why is Michael Elgin in this tournament to I can't believe we didn't get Elgin Nakamura.
Amazing. Right. It really is amazing, and it's funny because you just know that there's so many people chomping at the bit to rip the guy, and they haven't because they can't. And that tells you all you need to know. The silence when it comes to Michael Elgin from the people who don't like him is deafening in this situation.
Yeah. And one thing, oh, sorry, Rob, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I wanted to mention something about Elgin. And a lot of it happened in the last year where a lot of people that were, previously big fans of him or previous or whatever, sort of started turning on him a little bit. Not in the sense that, because I'm one of those people as well. I've always enjoyed his in-ring work, and I still do. But something about the character and the persona and just what he was, and just there was something that happened somewhere last year. It was probably about the last time when he didn't get into last year's G1 or whatever. And last year's, he didn't go to Japan. He didn't, that was one of his goals. I want to be in New Japan. I want to do this. And it sort of, he snapped. He kind of stopped becoming like, it seemed like when you go to shows, like people sort of knew that he didn't have confidence, that he lacked confidence, that he lacked some sort of stuff. He was getting in it with fans, on Twitter and in person. He was doing the weird baseball stuff, all sorts of stuff. But what we kind of, it's really a lot of our faults for doing that, because when we see what happens is this is what the guy wanted. This is this is what he wanted to do from the beginning is I want to go to Japan. I want to be in G1. I want to prove myself. I mean, you could tell the difference. I mean, if it's night and day. If you take Elgin from 6 months ago and wherever the hell he is, Ring of Honor, whatever he's working, to what he's doing now. I mean, the confidence that guy's, just personifying right now is just unbelievable. I mean, he's got the power thing going, which Joe mentioned. The power moves are super over. He understands it's over, and he's using it a lot more too. And I think that's one of his big benefits versus what you see a lot of times in Elgin and Ring of Honor, or a lot of times in America, where he gets a little too cute for his own good. Whereas here, and he can do it too with his size and the way he looks or whatever. Him being a big beefy power guy in Japan is, I mean, it's incredible. I mean, the him and Hanma, that match from night 8. I just got done watching that about an hour ago. I don't know ratings wise if it's going to be in my top 5 or whatever, but as far as like a pure enjoyment of a match, there's really not many G1 matches I've seen so far through these 39 nights that I enjoyed more than that one. I mean, just him tossing Hanma around, Hanma getting any little bit of, offense on his end, the Osaka crowd going nuts. I mean, just everything that was in there was awesome. But I think Elgin is just, he's clicking, and it's we see what finally happens when a guy gets his dream and when he gets his confidence back and when he does what he said he's always wanted to do. And I think it's a little unfair that last year we were that way. We were saying, oh God, this guy has lost the passion and all that stuff. He was tremendously disappointed. Like, of course you would not bring your A game and you would sort of sulk through stuff and be kind of irritable or whatever. He's none of that now. He's super confident, back to the Elgin of old, I think he's even better than the Elgin of old right now. I just think he's on fire. Yeah, he's a guy, I don't know if I would call him an MVP, but he's right in that conversation. Absolutely. He's just had a tremendous tournament all around.
I think with Elgin too is you can kind of see some nerves in the first undercard match he was in on night 1, because he was in the B block, so he didn't get into singles action until night 2. But they threw him to the wolves right away. I mean, he's already had guys like Okada. He's already had some of the big brawls that he had with Tomohiro Ishii and Tomoaki Honma during the end of an undercard match. Like, one match that I think a lot of people are expecting to be surprised by or expecting to be great is the Tomohiro Ishii match, which we haven't gotten with Michael Elgin. The rest of it, he's next up with Yujiro. He's got Carl Anderson still. But we kind of saw him against the big New Japan names like early on instead of him getting built up for it. Do you think that helped him?
I think that was by design. I think it was no mistake that they put him in there with Okada on the first 2 nights. And I think that was by design. I think that's why the Nakamura match was at least scheduled to be early on, because they wanted to make sure that the guy got over. I mean, when they did the G1 announcements, he got nobody knew who he was, and why would they? I mean, there's no reason for a New Japan fan to know who the hell Michael Elgin was. But I think what's really stood out here is, personally, I think this might be the best run of his career. I'm really high on what he's done on this tour, and really, it's what stood out for me is the pacing of his matches. He looks focused. He looks determined. And the one knock that really, even as someone who is an Elgin fan, the one critique that I think is fair is sometimes he goes way too fast. Mm-hmm. And he really does cram way too much into a lot of his matches. We have not seen that at all. I mean, his matches have been very well paced, and I'll tell you, on the show that wrapped up a couple hours ago on night 9, he was in a tag match with a lot of inexperienced and or shitty people. He was teaming with Jay White, and they went up against Yujiro and Cody Hall. And I know a lot of people are skipping the tags, and I get it. This thing's a grind. There's 19 nights. No one's got time for that shit. But if you go back and watch that match, Michael Elgin is a ring general in that match.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's in there with these young lions and Yujiro, who stinks, and he's controlling the pace, and he's controlling the tempo. He's doing little things to get the crowd involved in the match. He's covering up for botches. I'm telling you, this guy's on a hell of a run in a lot of different ways, and a lot of it is his pacing. I think he's a perfect fit for this promotion, and for a lot of the guys that he's working with on this roster. I would love to see him be at least, look, if Doc Gallows is a full-timer on this roster, I mean, he's 10 times the worker Doc Gallows.
I was going to say, can we just put face paint on Michael Elgin and just act like the Doc Gallows thing doesn't happen? Like, just seamlessly transition into, like, just don't even mention anything. Just all of a sudden Elgin is just there. But no, I don't want him in Bullet Club, but,
I mean, can we be honest? I mean, he's way better than, you look at some of these agents, he's way better than Doc Gallows. If people like Jack Stain and Rob Conway could be part-timers, why can't Michael Elgin at least be a part-timer here? He's been very impressive.
Do you think his run this year, and Rich, will start with you, his run this year so far in this G1, when he comes back to the States and he comes back to Ring of Honor and different promotions, are fans going to see him in a new light? Is he back to the Michael Elgin people loved, 2 years ago?
I think so. I do. And it might take a slow it might be, a little bit longer till we get that, but I think he's going to win people over. For people that aren't watching New Japan or aren't following or whatever, it might take a little bit, but I think he's got renewed confidence. I think he understands, like Joe said, I think that's an excellent point, is that you can tell from the pacing, the way he's conducting himself, the way he's in the ring, all that sort of stuff, the confidence is back. I mean, he's absolutely just on a perfect run right now, knows exactly what to do, knows exactly what his character is, exactly how to work in the ring. So I think even if those people aren't watching New Japan or don't know or whatever, it'll only take a little bit before they kind of get reinvigorated and go, okay, yeah, this guy's for real again. This guy's good. This guy, and I don't think he ever got bad necessarily. I think there was just always this weird disconnect between him and the fans, and there was some weirdness going on, but I think now he's ready to go. I mean, the guy is just a completely different worker than he was 6 or 7 months ago. And yeah, I don't think it's going to take long for American audiences to get back with him.
And we move on to the A block here. A big name that a lot of people are mentioning is the MVP of this tournament, Kota Ibushi. Spectacular. People really disappointed that he wasn't in last year's when he was supposed to be. But he's in this year, and he's getting the shot to go up against all the big names in main event level matches. He's had AJ Styles already. He's had Hiroshi Tanahashi already. Only 2 losses. He's at 6 points in the A block. Only 2 losses so far, one to Tanahashi and the other to Shibata, who's leading the A block. I know, Rich, you loved the AJ Styles match.
Yes.
What can you say about Kota Ibushi in this tournament? And with matches against like Bad Luck Fale left and Makabe and Naito, like is this a guy who has potential now as we're halfway in, looking at the block standings in Block A, that could possibly get to the finals, if not be the semifinal in Block A?
Yeah, that's going to always be the tough thing with Ibushi is at what level do they really see him, and what do they? I mean, he's scoring real well right now, and I think match wise, yeah, as you mentioned, I love the Styles match. I've loved basically almost every match he's been in has at least been at some level good or great, and that's you can't really ask for much more. And the great has just been a different level of great as well. Like a lot of people love the Shibata Ibushi match, and I enjoyed it as well, but I thought the Ibushi Styles was just like the perfect all around. I mean, when I watched it was over. It's one of those matches I went back and I rewatched immediately after just to watch it again and just to say, wow. I mean, this is the pacing was incredible. The selling I thought was incredible. I mean, just everything that you needed, the length, everything. It was just like a perfect match in all levels. And I just love it. And that without a doubt is going to be, I think, my favorite match of the entire G1. And I'll be, anxiously await, the final or something to break it out or at least beat it. But for right now, I mean, there's nothing that's going to top that. I thought that was just an incredible match. As far as him winning, it's tough because I don't think that that's the goal there. I think it's going to be one of either AJ Styles or Tanahashi. But yeah, you mentioned the guys that Ibushi has left, and it's going to be hard to have him not be at least in the conversation because, like, I mean, he's not going to lose to, maybe a Makabe he loses to as like a spoiler, but like he's not going to lose to Yano. I doubt. I mean, that would be pretty insane to do that. I just don't know. Bad Luck Fale could possibly be a spoiler in that sense, and maybe he'll be the one that knocks him out. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they do, because they've kind of got a level now where he's kind of there, and you really have to have him get spoiled if you don't want him to at least make the finals or tie for the finals or be in a tiebreaker or anything like that. But I don't exactly know the plan for him, but it'll be interesting to see. And that's the A block has a lot of really interesting scenarios, and I think that's in general. And I think we're probably going to talk about that here in a little bit. Is that we kind of came into this entire G1 thinking, okay, here's X guys who are going to win it, and yeah, it's kind of these, and you can see from our predictions from the G1 pick'em contest that we did on the site. I mean, overwhelming majority picked Nakamura, Tanahashi, and Styles to come away with it. Well, now we're 9 nights in, and there's still a lot of guys that are in play here. I mean, there's Styles, there's Ibushi, there's Shibata in the A block, there's Tanahashi in the A block.
Mm-hmm.
B block, you have guys like Okada, who's absolutely still in there. Nakamura's in there. And then also guys like a Goto or even like a Carl Anderson, who I don't think in the end is going to be there. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting, names that are still floating up there. But yeah, to your original point about Ibushi, I doubt that he's going to make the finals, but he's kind of in a weird spot now where he's going to have to get upset by a guy that I think is going to make a lot of people mad, when he loses. But yeah, I don't foresee him being in the finals, but who knows?
Let me ask you this way. The matches Ibushi has left, he's got 6 points right now. He has Bad Luck Fale, Tetsuya Naito.
I'll do it. Give me one at a time, and I'll tell you if he can lose.
Go for it.
Or not.
All right. Bad Luck Fale.
Absolutely can lose.
Tetsuya Naito.
Absolutely can lose.
Toru Yano.
I think he'll win that one.
And then his final match of the tournament is Togi Makabe.
Absolutely can lose. See, that's the thing. I don't think he's coming out of the block because he has key tiebreaker losses already to people who are in the mix.
Mm-hmm.
And 3 of those matches he can lose, and I wouldn't bat an eye. I mean, because you have to understand, we may not like the in-ring for some of those guys, but those are guys who are protected in the booking and who get taken care of. And there's no reason that those guys can't beat Kota Ibushi, and they wouldn't necessarily be awful booking decisions for those guys to win anyway at this point of Ibushi's push. So to me, he's a guy who they're going to keep him around. He'll be in the mix, but he's going to drop a couple of those matches that we just talked about. And then, maybe either it might not even come down to the tiebreakers at that point. So, but I can definitely see him losing the Makabe on the final night as sort of the final nail in the coffin.
So what I think I'm going to do here, we're going to go through the standings, but we might continue this. Like we'll see who out of each block has the chances based on where they are now to get in these finals. And Block A, maybe not a surprise for a lot of people, but the fall might be coming. Katsuyori Shibata is the only one right now at 8 points. He's the only one. He's leading Block A, and then you have a tie with almost everyone else at 6 points with Naito, Fale, Ibushi, Styles, Tanahashi, and Makabe in Block A. So staying in Block A here, Katsuyori Shibata, is this the year he gets to the finals and wins it, Joe?
Okay, well, that group of guys with 6 points, I think the only one you can definitively eliminate is Makabe. Makabe is not winning the block.
Mm-hmm.
I'd give him 0% chance of winning the block. All the other guys have a reasonable chance. You can make an argument that they can sneak in there and at least win the block. Well, I don't think all of them could. The monkey wrench here is Naito, because none of us saw this coming. And I can totally see with the way this is going, him at least at minimum winning the block. Now, Shibata, his one loss is to, refresh my memory here, he lost to...
Shibata lost to AJ Styles.
Right, on the first night. So, and what does he have in front? He already faced Styles. He already faced Ibushi.
He's got a pretty, I would consider an easy road, but we'll do the same thing. We'll go through the guys he has left and your chances that he can win this match. Shibata has Doc Gallows.
I mean, theoretically, he should win. But, I mean, with already having 8 points, he's got to get upset by somebody. I was able to Gallows is the right guy, but Gallows could be the right guy because he's someone who's completely out of the mix, and you can throw a win at Gallows and not disrupt anything else.
I was actually earlier, before we started recording, I went through some scenarios of what we have left to kind of get to a level and see what we could do if realistically saying, okay, so let's say Shibata goes on a little bit of a run. There's a way where he can tie everybody with 12 points. It'll be essentially what I sort of did is Styles with 12, Tanahashi with 12, and Shibata with 12. And this is just like Shibata's absolute best scenario here. I don't think this is what's going to happen, but here's his absolute best scenario is that he beats Tenzan, beats the person that he eventually loses to, though, that kind of disrupts the whole thing is, but I have it here. I think that
Tanahashi.
Yeah, but yeah. So he loses on August 8th, that main event against Tanahashi. He loses that, then he drops all the tiebreakers. So that sort of, in a way, will, um, or it will. That's a scenario that Shibata will be tied for the lead and still kind of go through those guys that we might hypothetically think that he can go through. But that allows Tanahashi to still win the block as well, is that he beats Shibata on that August 8th, and then all those guys. If you want to protect Styles, Tanahashi, and Shibata and get to a way where they do that, that's what you can do. And then obviously Tanahashi beats AJ, and it goes from there. If you wanted that, that's to me my best case scenario for Shibata. I don't see any scenario where he wins the block,
Right.
but he can be right in that conversation if you really want to do that. I don't know if they're going to do that. I feel like he's probably going to have a spoiler loss here and there and not really be in play, in the final few nights or whatever. But you never know. I mean, this would be a scenario that'd be pretty cool where Tanahashi, gets that big win at a main event and sort of Shibata sticks around, but now he's lost that tiebreaker and then it kind of hurts when it gets to the final night. But I don't know. Yeah, he's an interesting scenario for sure right now.
Because he's going to have to get upset by somebody, because his matches that are left are Gallows, Tanahashi, Tenzan, and Yano. So one of those three, Tenzan, Yano, and Gallows, will have to upset him or else he's going to win.
The thing is, any of those guys can beat him because we've seen it in the past. He's not one of these guys where I say there's no way Doc Gallows can beat him. He's not protected at that level. We've seen him lose to people well below his perceived level before in these G1s. So it's, that's why, I could easily see him going 2-2 in those matches.
So everyone is getting their first look really in earnest at the new Tetsuya Naito this year in the G1. He's getting the new gimmick over. The fans, I mean, they're erupting in boos for this guy on shows where you don't generally hear that so often. Everyone hates Naito, and he's a superstar in Block A. Like, your overall thoughts on Naito, Joe, in this tournament, and the fact that he has built himself into a credible possible finalist here in the G1.
Yeah, I mean, to me, he's always had this reputation. I mean, he straight up has a nickname of, he's considered a quote unquote wrestling genius. And, I never really bought into that. I never saw him as some sort of, master of wrestling psychology or this master ring technician. I never saw it. I was never a huge Naito fan. I didn't hate the guy, but I didn't think his output matched his reputation. With this change in character, I can kind of see why he has that reputation now. This was the best thing for him. It completely freshened him up. He had gotten stale. I had written him off completely as a future main eventer. I thought the ship had officially sailed on him. But this has really breathed new life into him, and these have been this last week and a half or whatever has really been the most enjoyable performances to me. From a sense of complete performances of his career for me. These may not be if I went through and looked at star ratings or whatever, the best matches of his career, but they're the most complete performances. And the thing is, he's still in the early stages of this. So he can still refine it and make it better, especially when he gets his reinforcements coming in from Mexico and he leads his stable. So this is really a guy to keep an eye on. I know this isn't breaking news because he's sort of impressed everybody. But this is definitely a guy to keep an eye on. And I do think, as well as this has gone, he is a threat to win the block. I mean, I think they've really got something here.
Rich, the rise of Naito.
Yeah, I think it's Joe and I talk about this a lot on the actual Voice of Wrestling podcast. It's one of those heel turns that you don't know that you wanted, and then you never knew that that's what that guy needed, and then you see it and you're like, oh my god! Like, I don't think anybody 6 months ago or any point when we were talking about writing off Naito said, you know what, they should turn him heel and give him, we in no way was this a scenario that we thought could happen or get over or that he would be this good in that role. I mean, he is just like Joe said. I mean, we sort of always heard the genius part of him, and it was like, okay, yeah, whatever. He is what he is. He's fine. He's okay, or whatever. And then you see this, and now just the mannerisms, his facials, the way he moves around the ring, the way he's just completely adjusted his offense, the way he's completely adjusted the way he sells, the way he completely adjusted, post-match, pre-match, what he wears. So it's unbelievable the transformation that this guy has made in a few short weeks, and it's you're seeing even casual people, you're seeing first timers. I mean, everybody is into this. Like, there's not one person that's like, this is kind of okay or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, There's not one person that's not like, wow, this is just like next level great heel work that he's doing. And the fans are reacting to it, perfectly, exactly as they want. The other wrestlers are reacting to it well. I mean, we look at a guy like AJ Styles, who in a match with Naito, AJ Styles is the babyface, just by proxy of Naito just being that big of an asshole heel, that a guy who's been one of the top heels for 2 years becomes the sympathetic babyface or whatever, just by being in the same ring with Naito, who's been heel for like a month. Like, think about that. It's just unbelievable to think about. And especially when you go back to Wrestle Kingdom, and this was only a few months ago where, Styles is the one that hit the Styles Clash on Naito, and that was like, oh my God, he's going to kill him. He's going to break. Everybody was so, the sympathy was all for Naito. And now we jump ahead to, July, and now people are, oh my God, don't hurt AJ, or like, stop being a dick to AJ. Like, it's just, that was the match where it just really clicked for me. I was like, man, like this guy, he's just on a next heel level right now, because when you can go face to face with AJ and make him the baby face, and you've only been a heel for a month, like that shows you just what he's been able to do and how he's been able to transform just his career and everything. And he's a guy that, I think in this, in this A block, you have to look out for him. And I think going forward, I mean, we have to sort of change how we think of, the upper card of New Japan. I mean, this is a guy who's going to be a player now. We know that until Wrestle Kingdom, and then after that, this is a guy who's going to be in the picture. He's going to be in the mix. He's not just going to have this hot G1 run and then, fall back to the wayside. I mean, this is a guy, they're making him right now. That's what they're doing.
Could a case be made that Naito is saving this year's tournament? Because if he were in here as the babyface of Naito of last year, and we had the same exact tournament, like, due to the separation of matches, due to the fact that, Yujiro is in there, and due to the fact that we just don't have these shows of the year contenders, like, is Naito the one that's saving this tournament?
No, I think that's silly.
Oh, come on.
I don't think he's saving the tournament. I mean, he's having a nice little run here, but
what about saving interest in the tournament for some? Like,
I could buy that. For some people, he could be helping. I mean, I guess so, maybe for some people, but for me, I think he's been interesting. And like I said, I've been more interested in this run out of him than any other run in his career. But with that said, I'm not sure I have him in my top 5 performers overall in the tournament. But then again, not everyone watches this thing with the same intentions in mind. I'm watching this to see great matches and great drama. Some people aren't necessarily, that's not their top priority when they watch a tournament. So I can, and clearly he's had a ton of buzz from people. There's nobody who hasn't been impressed with what he's doing and with his character work. So I guess if you frame it that way, I can buy into that. I do think that he has been a major component to a lot of people's enjoyment. For me personally, I mean, I could remove him from this tournament and I'd still be enjoying it immensely without him.
I think, Rob, I'm kind of with Joe in that sense where I don't think he's saving it for me. I think no matter what, I'd still be interested. But I absolutely see from the casual fan standpoint, or from people that are just sort of tuning in here and there to watch them. I mean, what he does to sort of break up the shows and help it and give it a whole different dynamic, I see. Like, for me, I'm fine with. I could be perfectly okay with 5 just really good matches in a row, and then we're done. And that's fine with me. I mean, that's the that's Voices of Wrestling. That's what we sort of do. It's a big part of us, but whatever. But from watching it from a casual fan standpoint, or at least thinking about it from a casual fan standpoint, I could see how there's the nice little break of whenever his match comes. It's sort of like, okay, let's, we can kind of calm down for a little bit. We can sort of see him do some character work. We don't have to necessarily just be tuned in to what's going to happen and what moves and what reversals and what near falls and that sort of stuff. You can sort of, especially the beginning of his matches as well, there's always this slow sort of, and it's really good. I mean, the one against AJ was another one that was perfect, where he's just slowly unbuttoning his, his collar and taking his, and then AJ is like, come on, let's go. Like, what are we doing here? So I could see that from a standpoint of, if you're just kind of watching this and like you said, it's been 18, we're getting 18 of these, and it's just been just every single day, it's just been so much to consume, that if you're somebody that's not all in on, I just want to see great matches and that sort of stuff, I think absolutely he's one that's standing out for you, especially in the A block, where you're getting a lot of really good matches in the A block, but you're not really getting a whole lot of, outside of him, a lot of the guys are just kind of there and doing their character work. And, Yano's another guy who I think's been adding a little bit to the A block as well. But a guy like, I love Shibata, but he's just really having great matches. If you're just a casual fan, I don't know necessarily. No, Tanahashi's been great, but from that standpoint, you really are not getting a whole lot of like pure character work from them. Whereas Naito, you're getting a ton of. So if that's something that interests you, I mean, that's right wheelhouse. I mean, he's doing a perfect job of doing that and sort of breaking it up in that sense.
He's had great matches. I mean, I thought.
Oh no, yeah, I'm not putting him down at all. I think with you though, I don't know if I would put him in my top 5 either. I think maybe just outside or maybe in the tail end of that. But yeah, in terms of like pure entertainment level and guys that I'm interested in watching, he's way up there. I don't know if he's been the best worker or if he's had the top all the top matches or what, but yeah, he's absolutely been one of the more entertaining guys in the entire tournament.
he's one of the big stories.
Sure.
So I guess from that standpoint, we're talking ourselves into Rob's argument here. But I mean,
that bastard.
He's had great matches against Styles and Tanahashi, and I think I'm the only person in the world who actually liked the match against Bad Luck Fale. I thought, aside from the finish, I thought that was a good match. So it's not like his matches haven't been great. Some of his matches haven't been great, but there have been so many guys here who've been having great matches that I still think he would fall out of my top 5.
Yeah, the saving the tournament might be a little strong, but I'll say it this way, is the fact that we still have Naito going up against Doc Gallows still to come. And if it were last year's Naito, I would not care about this matchup coming at all. I would forget that it ever existed. But now I'm going to watch every Naito singles match, and I'm interested in seeing all of the ones he still has coming up to see how he plays off against different characters, especially guys who are hated.
After that as well. That's
right.
He's got Gallows and Tenzan. Like last year, you'd go, all right.
Yeah, I mean, Naito still has Gallows, Ibushi coming up, Tenzan and Yano. So not exactly a murderer's row for him either, but matches that I'll watch all 4 of those. And I'm excited to see all 4 of those coming up. But Joe, you mentioned it, and so did you, Rich. So we're going to go into it right now before we get to some of the B block stuff. Top 5 performers so far midway through the G1. Joe, what would your top 5 look like?
Oh man, right on the spot. Well, I'm going to do it on the fly.
Go for it.
Number 1 to me, and quite easily, is Kota Ibushi. Number 2, man, this is why we need to do pre-show prep.
No, hey, I wasn't even going to ask, but I'm hearing just shots fired of he's not even in my top 5. Well, guess what? You're going to put Naito in your top 5, I bet.
Styles.
Okay. Here, you think about.
No, hold on now. No, that's incorrect.
Okay.
Shibata's number 2.
All right. Well, you think about 3 through 5.
I got it.
I have my 5. I'm ready, Rob.
Let Rich go then.
I'm gonna let. Nope, you're fine. I'm gonna let Rich go. Give his 1 through 5 while you think about your 3 through 5 and try not to put Naito in it.
Mr. McCarron, does this have to be in
order?
I'm
not trying not to put Naito in it. I'm not out to prove a point here. I'm looking. Listen, let me put.
Why do you hate Naito, Joe? Why do you hate him?
Before Rich goes, I have 14 matches currently rated 4 stars or higher. Okay, Naito's in 2 of them, and they both got 4 stars flat. I'm telling you right now, I got 5 guys who have outperformed him strictly from a star rating levels. But go ahead, Rich can go first.
Rich will go here. Inside baseball, this is how we create echo chamber stuff that we can dissect later on. This is how we become the worldwide leader. I'm just saying.
Does this have to be in order, or can I just give
give your top? Just give 5 performers who are your top 5. Doesn't have to be in order.
That works. Well, Ibushi is my number 1 in both ways. I'll mention him. I think he's number 1 absolutely in the rank, and clear cut for me, top 5. AJ Styles, I've loved his work throughout. I'd probably go him probably number 2. Okada, I'd probably put number 3. I've really thought Okada, and he's sort of having a sleeper. I don't know, and I guess people are talking about it to a sense. I feel like not enough people are talking about it, but that's always a weird. I hate doing that because it might be just the people I'm listening to or the people I'm discussing stuff with. I don't feel like he's getting enough credit. I mean, he's just had an incredible. I think he's really maturing a lot and becoming just that next level worker where any match he's in with anybody is delivering, and that's when you can tell that a guy's just got it and is there. Is that when you can face literally anybody and get at least good to great out of them, you're there. I mean, you're ready to go. Tanahashi would be in there, and then I'd round out the top 5 with Shibata. I think Naito would be my number 6. If I was doing a top 5, he'd probably be the number 6 out of there. But that's not really that's not a slight on him. I mean, those 5 guys I've given have just had incredible matches, and and Naito from a pure entertainment standpoint, he's right up there. Like when we talk about guys that I seek out, and when their match is on, I make sure that I'm paying attention and watching. Naito's absolutely one. Elgin's right there, and then Hanma's another one as well, who I thought has had a great tournament as well, especially with guys like Elgin and that. But yeah, that would be probably entertainment wise, he's in that top 5, probably the top 3. But as terms of like pure like star rating match guy or whatever, it'd be Ibushi, Styles, Okada, Tanahashi, Shibata for me.
I have a feeling Joe's will probably mirror that. But Joe, your 3, you have Styles, you have Shibata, you have Ibushi in your top 5, right?
I'll even give you an order.
Okay.
Ibushi's number 1.
Yep.
Shibata's number 2. And then the next 3 are razor tight. But I think I would go Tanahashi number 3 because he's got probably what I consider the best match in the tournament against Ibushi. And then I think he just pulled a miracle out of Bad Luck Fale on the 29th. I mean, that was just a classic performance from Tanahashi with a guy who's been bad in the rest of the tournament. And then, he had another, real fun match against Yano. on the show that just wrapped up. So I'd probably put, and then the Naito match. So I'd probably put him third. Just a razor's edge difference over Styles, and then Okada fifth. So I've got Ibushi, Shibata, Tanahashi, Styles, and Okada. And if I had to rank Naito, just because that's sort of what spurred this, he would be right there in that next group with Elgin, Ishii, and Hanma. And it would be neck and neck between Naito and Elgin, who I'd have at number 6. But if you put a gun to my head, I'd probably put Naito at number 6 and Elgin at number 7.
I would be very similar to Rich and really both of you. I probably have Naito in my top 5 ahead of Okada, but Rich, to your point, Okada has slipped kind of under the radar. I would have him at 6. I mean, he's been really good in this tournament, but so far, because we still have to wait until the final night when he faces Shinsuke Nakamura, which still very likely could be the winner of the block match, basically right there, Okada and Nakamura. We're still waiting to see exactly how Nakamura gets back in the game here after he had the forfeit loss to Michael Elgin due to the elbow injury. But Nakamura's back. He's at 4 points. Okada leads with Ishii and Anderson and Goto at 6 points. So is it likely still to you that in Block B, Rich, we come down to Okada and Nakamura being for the entrance into that final G1 match?
I do. I think the scenario to do that isn't very hard either. Like, all that Nakamura has to really do is win out.
Yeah.
And what's going to happen is Okada has to lose a spoiler match. Someone's got to have to beat him. One of the ones that I look at, and it would be kind of a weird one. I don't know necessarily if they do it, but I could see it being something they want to do. Throw a bone to a legend or whatever. It has Yuji Nagata on. I believe I forgot which. The 12th, August the 12th, is having Yuji Nagata beat Okada. What that would do then is set up the Nakamura Okada match to be, okay, winner goes to the finals, and then I think that makes sense. But Nakamura basically just has to win out. And if you look at his upcoming matches, it wouldn't be that hard. Like, it's almost plausible that this kind of was technically the scenario for him. Like, I'm sure something happened where obviously they weren't going to have him lose to Michael Elgin, but it's not that hard then. I mean, he just has to beat beat Ishii on the first. The fourth, he has to beat Goto. That I doubt would be, that's one where I'm sure they initially probably could have maybe had Goto win that one, but now there's just no chance to do that. I mean, he essentially, Nakamura cannot lose the rest of the way out. So he's going to have to beat Goto. He's going to have to beat Yujiro. Was going to happen regardless. He's going to have to beat Hanma. That was going to happen regardless. So that's not a big deal. And then he has to beat Kojima. I think that was going to happen as well. And then that sets up him, as long as Okada loses one of those heartbreaker matches, somewhere along the line, he has to get spoiled by somebody. And the scenarios for him, I mean, Nagata's probably the best one that I could see. I mean, Yujiro on the 9th, I hope that doesn't happen. He's got Ishii on the 7th in a main event. That's a possibility, but I doubt it. And then he's got Carl Anderson on the. Oh no, sorry, that one already. Yeah, so
he's got Anderson. Yeah.
Oh right, okay, yeah. So that is correct. Trying to go here. Yeah, Nagata's the only one that I really see, but that's basically it. Because otherwise, if Okada wins out, he's got it, and Nakamura's not even in the conversation. So yeah, I think that would be my scenario: is have Okada get spoiled by I think Nagata, but you could make a few names in there, and Nakamura just has to win out, and then that final match is the winner, and then Nakamura wins, and he's right there. So there might have been a few things that they've had to change around, maybe Goto not getting his win over Nakamura or whatever, that they've had to change, but otherwise the scenario is pretty well there for him to still go to the finals if he's healthy.
Goto wasn't beating Nakamura for a third time in a row, so I don't think. My question is, look, Nakamura was going to beat Elgin. So where are they compensating for that? I'm wondering.
Could it be Ishii?
Possibly. Probably. Actually, yeah.
Ishii on the first. Yeah, the one that we just saw a few days ago.
Maybe he was going to lose that match.
Because he wasn't going to lose to Yujiro. You're right on the Goto thing. Yeah, I doubt that would have.
Never
come
losing.
On. I mean,
yeah,
that wasn't going to happen.
He wasn't losing to those 3 guys.
And then Kojima, I doubt too. I mean, right. in an absolute unbelievable. I mean, maybe, but
maybe a 10% chance. So
right. I would say that Ishii was probably the one.
Yeah, you're right. That's probably the scenario. So I mean, look, we knew from day one that this was coming down to Nakamura and Okada on the last night. So I don't think that's going to change. And look, Okada could win the block, but he's obviously not winning the whole tournament. So if he's not winning the whole tournament, what would be the point of even winning the block? I guess it wouldn't be the craziest thing, but I don't know. I think the fact that they gave Nakamura, 3 days off or whatever it was, and had him forfeit a match, and they're still keeping him in this thing, means that he's probably winning it, because they don't want to take him out of it. So we'll see, but this block is kind of less interesting in the sense that we know it's going to come down to that match on the last night in Sumo Hall.
Now, that's one of those things where I think everyone, at least a lot of people, predicted that that was going to be the case before the tournament. So even with the injury may have caused a little bit more interest in the block in my regard, just because, okay, now are they still going to stick to this plan that we think is going to happen? Is it going to change any? Like, what's going to happen here? To me, it created a little bit more interest, just because I thought Okada and Nakamura coming down and Nakamura winning the whole thing. I think in the pick'em game that Rich mentioned, I picked Nakamura to win the whole thing. A lot of people were hurt by the Michael Elgin match because they picked Nakamura to beat Michael Elgin and go on, and a lot of people have Nakamura. Like, I look at these pick'em standings, and I did not know Ghetto's name was Paco Silva Martinez because this guy has only had one. He's only had one night where he's failed to predict at least 4 of the correct winners on a given show. He's had several nights where he's gotten all 5. Like, Paco went in with an idea for what they were going to do, and that idea is in line with what's actually happening.
So I've never seen them together, Gato and Paco. So
I know, yeah. Go ahead, Joe.
So what does he have for the final?
Let's see here. I can do that. Let's on the air. Let's reveal his
reveal the final, and whatever that final is, I guess is going to spoil the rest of the tournament.
Do you guys want to get spoiled? I'll just run down the entire tournament.
I want to see what Paco has for the final, because right now he's taking a commanding lead. I mean, he is several points ahead of second place. I am way back in the pack. Because my idea for what they were going to do is obviously not what they're going to do at all. Block A, I think Block A is screwing a lot of people up, because I don't know if anyone expected Naito to have this strong run. Tanahashi was 2-2 in his first 4 matches, and then he won this weekend, so now he's 3-2 with 6 points. I don't know if Tanahashi was expected to lose to people who he's lost to. What do you think about that while Rich is looking up the standings? Joe, Tanahashi losing to Bad Luck Fale 2 years in a row.
I mean, these guys, you have to have a surprising loss in there somewhere. Mm-hmm. These guys, nobody goes into the final night undefeated, and they look, this is the G1. There's always surprising wins. So, and like I said, Fale, I mean, he's right in the mix too with 6 points. He's a guy that they protect, even though almost none of us enjoy watching his matches. He's always in the top mix, always in an important feud, whether it's with Nakamura or Okada, and he's always upsetting people in this tournament, and maybe it's time to stop calling him upsets. He's just a guy that they protect.
I thought the finish to the Tanahashi Fale match was absolutely perfect, with the unintentional slip when Fale went up to the top rope before hitting the high fly flow. Like that unintentional slip, and the crowd just goes nuts, like, oh, the big man's going to fall. I thought that was one of the better finishes we've seen all tournament, and most of it was because of an unintentional slip up.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where a near botch actually adds to the match.
Yeah,
I completely agree, because then there was a lot of drama. Is he going to fall off or not? I think it added to it as well. And I'll tell you, the Fale Shibata match from a couple hours ago was very surprising too. And they teased the finish from last year, which some people picked up on, other people didn't. They teased that count out finish that they did last year, and it was in the same building, which I'm not sure if a lot of people picked up on either. So nice little callbacks there with the Fale Shibata match.
You guys are going to be upset. Paco Gato has a bit of a spoiler of a finish here. You guys ready for this guy?
I'm ready for it. It's just a block
winner. A block winner Kota Ibushi.
Okay.
Against B block winner Shinsuke Nakamura and the G1 winner Kota Ibushi. In 33 minutes and 23 seconds, Kota Ibushi is your champion.
Playing off of Wrestle Kingdom.
Yes.
This year a little bit. And it's just interesting. Joe, your chances of Ibushi Nakamura as the final.
Since we're now using Paco as our official.
Well, you got the New Japan Booker here in the Pick'em game under a pseudonym.
There's no reason that can't be the final, especially if you think Nakamura is going to win it. If they did do that final, and I talked about this on our big preview, I would have Nakamura beat Ibushi again. And that'll drive a lot of people insane, but I'm loving that story of Ibushi not being able to beat Nakamura. And everyone would cry and whine about it and say that they're burying Ibushi and, you're going to kill this guy. That's utter nonsense. You look at the old school, you go back to the early 90s All Japan, the way Giant Baba booked his guys. And this is booking that works, where you make a guy wait forever to finally get over the hump against a big rival. And, sometimes you can wait too long, But in this case, I don't think it would be waiting too long. I
Mhm.
would, if they do that match, I think Nakamura should win again. I don't think Ibushi should beat him until it's in that dome at some point. That's when he needs to beat Nakamura, and preferably for a big title, meaning the IWGP Heavyweight title. Preferably over the IC title at this point. I think Nakamura is done with the IC title, and
Yeah.
he should be done with the IC title. But I could see that final. I can't see Ibushi winning the whole thing though. I really can't.
Well, before we take a look at some other things here in this tournament, we'll each go on record halfway through here. The winner of this year's G1, my prediction remains Shinsuke Nakamura, despite whatever has happened with the injury, or maybe added because of whatever's happened with the injury note. My pick is Nakamura. Rich, where are you at for the winner?
I'm still with Nakamura. I mean, that was my initial pick. That's the pick I had from the beginning, and I'm still going with that. I think he's the 3 days off, as Joe mentioned. I think that was a dead giveaway that, at least to an extent, he's going to be in the mix and he's going to be in the finals or something. Because if he was really that hurt, or if there was something, they would just say, hey, you know what? Hey, sit it out. It's cool. Get healthy or whatever. But the fact that they're saying, hey, here's 3 days off. Okay, you're back now. Go. I mean, at least I think that just kind of shows their hand a little bit that either he's going to be in the finals or he's going to win it. I think he's going to win it. I stick with that scenario.
Joe, your pick to win.
Yeah, I don't have any reason to get off of Nakamura. And he's been hurt, and the matches he has been involved in have been a little disappointing. But I think in the final week, he's going to ramp it up and do what it takes. Now, I think the more interesting story moving forward is not necessarily whether he guts his way through this tournament or not, or whether he even wins the tournament or not, but it's the extent of that injury and whether or not he's going to need some kind of surgery.
Mm-hmm.
Because by the end of this thing, we're looking at mid-August. And if he's got to have some kind of surgery or something that's going to keep him out for an extended period of time, I mean, that is, to me, something worth tracking.
Yeah, and I think what's important too is that the G1, the way it's set up now, is that he's going to be defending that briefcase. That makes up the whole period that between this and Wrestle Kingdom is making those defenses and defending that briefcase and doing that sort of stuff. If he can't go, then they really have to rethink that.
And we're going to get into brief notes of the undercard here. But yeah, we're still on board with Nakamura. Night 10, which takes place on Tuesday. The main event on that show, this is a B block show, Nakamura and Goto. So we're getting that match pretty much right away. Whether that could have been a Goto win from before the injury, certainly now seems like it'll be a Nakamura win. But also on that show, Okada and Carl Anderson, Yuji Nagata, Tomohiro Ishii, and Michael Elgin going up against Yujiro, plus Honma and Kojima. So really all around, like one of the better B block cards that I was kind of eyeing before this tournament started. And we're going to get into some interesting stuff here. I mean, whether you think the B block is a lost cause until the final night, we're getting into some interesting stuff here. But I wanted to talk especially about this undercard. Joe, in your review today, you brought up an interesting point that was made on Twitter by others, and people are starting to see this. But guys like Tama Tonga have been getting a lot of wins. Guys like Yoshihashi have been getting a lot of wins. What do you make of the non-G1 competitors getting a lot of these pinfalls in these tag team and 6-man tags on the undercard here in the G1?
It's the right thing to do. Why not? I mean, we've all been waiting for them to do something with some of these guys, especially Tama Tonga, who I think a lot of people recognize has a ton of potential, and he just keeps getting better and better. And Yoshihashi has looked good on these undercards. Now, he's a guy who he'll tease you. He'll look good for a couple months, and then he'll look like shit for a couple months. Then he'll look good again for a couple months. Right now, he looks good, and he looks motivated. See, what this is telling me is not only are these guys picking up wins, but you can tell that they're excited about that because you can see it in their performances. If you watch Tama Tonga on last night's show, you watch Yoshihashi on last night's show, they clearly were busting their asses and were the stars of each of their respective matches because they know that the company's getting behind them a little bit, or getting behind them more than they've ever gotten behind either one of them before because they're racking up wins on this tournament. So these are two guys who hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll see in the G1 next year instead of your Doc Gallows or what have you, or people like that. I would much rather see a Tama Tonga, a young guy with far more upside, get a shot in this thing than a guy like Gallows or Yujiro. But unfortunately, I think we're stuck with Yujiro based on his veteran status and the fact that he's a native and all that. But I mean, so yeah, I think it's a good thing. I mean, they don't have to do this. They can most definitely give the stars that are involved in these matches, wins on these shows, but they're not doing that. They're giving these pinfall wins to guys like Yoshihashi and Tama Tonga.
We have to see Yujiro, please.
I honestly think you're
Jeez,
stuck
that's
with
so
him.
bad.
I
God,
he's just he's a native guy, and I don't think they'll yank him from these things. I
it's
really
been
don't.
so bad this tournament. Like he has made it's unbelievable the matches that he's had, and just the crowd as well. I mean, that's the thing where there's a lot of guys where we complain about, and there's people that and a lot of people will say, hey, look, we might not like X, or we might not like we
I'll
might
give
not
you a
like
good
Nagata
example, like Tenzan.
or
Okay, you
Tenzan and
might not
Nagata.
be in the Tenzan, but at least the crowd is in Tenzan, and you can understand why he's in the tournament. He's a
Exactly. Yeah.
legend.
Like
People like
it's
him.
one of those. Like Nagata is absolutely one of those where you're like, ah,
Right.
geez, what the hell? And then all of a sudden, you see the crowd go nuts for every little thing he does, and he rolls his eyes back, and they're just going, insane in there, And we kind of go, that's whatever. But Yujiro's a guy that they don't like. We don't like. I don't know who likes Yujiro. It's just the worst.
We had, since the last time all of us have talked, and during this tournament, we had Ricochet announced taking on junior heavyweight champ Kushida on the final night of this G1 Climax. What do you think about Ricochet's return facing off with Kushida?
Look, I mean, these last 6 nights in Tokyo are going to be mental. I mean, you're going to have 6 sold out shows. They added the Ricochet Kushida match. They added the Young Bucks versus Red Dragon match.
Mm-hmm.
No other teams involved. It's just one team versus the other. It's not some wacky 3 or 4 way like they always like to do. The night before, they've got the Young Bucks and Red Dragon each going up against Young Lion tag teams, which is always a lot of fun. Sort of tune-up matches for the title match they're gonna have the next night. These sumo hall shows, and plus, of course, you're gonna have the matches that are gonna determine who wins these blocks. So you've got your Nakamura, Okada, and all those matches and everything else. These shows in sumo hall are gonna be pretty nuts. And the fact that they've loaded them up with these junior title matches certainly helps. And I think people are kind of sleeping on the quality that we've gotten so far in the tournament. And I honestly think the best is yet to come. Assuming people survive physically, which you always, is a factor here. I really think the best is in front of us with the first half of the tournament in the rearview mirror. And I really think those sumo hall shows in front of sold out crowds with the caliber of matches that we're going to see are really going to blow people's doors off. One thing someone mentioned, I was going to save this for the Voice of Wrestling flagship later this week, but I guess we'll do it here since we're talking about the G1. If with this new split format, and I know that this is something Alan talked about on his show and someone brought up on Twitter last night. If you combine any 2 shows on the tour, if you combine night 1 with night 2, night 3 with night 4, night 5 with night 6, in other words, combine the A and the B block, the split blocks into singular shows, the quality of this year's G1 is not that far behind last year, and it's right there with the year before. And we all love 2013. We didn't think 2014 would ever top it. It did. It became the best tournament in history of wrestling. And and that's certainly a very high bar to clear. And I don't think this tournament is going to be able to catch up to last year's tournament. But we'll see what happens in the second half. But if you combine these shows into one, which essentially they would have been under the old format, you'd have some pretty loaded shows there. It's just the fact that they're split and the shows overall don't have the same buzz that they had the last 2 years. But again, I've got 14 matches, 4 stars or better halfway through. Last year was just something unique and something completely special. There was something like 47 matches that were 4 stars. Look, we weren't getting that, and I don't think anybody realistically expected that. But this is right on pace to the year before. And the 2013 tournament, people thought was incredible. So, I think people are kind of sleeping on the quality of this tournament a bit. And it's because we haven't gotten the mega show yet, which we're probably not going to get until the final 3 days in sumo.
Rich, your thoughts going into the final night here now with Ricochet and also the return match of Bushi?
Yes, the Bushi, that's a story that really deserves. I mean, he had just one of the most sick injuries I think I've ever seen in a ring, where it was like, watching that, and there was gifts that came out or whatever, and it was just, I couldn't even bear to watch him, because I was like, oh God, that it just looked awful. The way his body reacted to the fall just looked terrible. So for him to get in the ring this, I would consider this pretty early for him to get back in the ring. Like, I thought he was going to be a guy like Yoshitatsu, whoever, who was also apparently on his path to recovery or whatever. But yeah, I thought Bushi was going to be for a year plus for him to come back, and justifiably so if it would have taken him. But he's coming back now, so that's good to know that he's ready to go. And yeah, Ricochet coming back. I mean, you obviously, if you're a fan of this website and what we do and what Joe and I do, I mean, I'm so excited to see Ricochet back in the New Japan ring, and just to see him in Japan as well. If you've watched his Dragon Gate stuff, he's just a different guy from what he portrays in Lucha Underground and even what he does a lot of times on the independents. I think just in Japan is just so perfect for his style. It helps that he works with a better crop of workers. Just being in that big crowd, being in that atmosphere, he's super over. People love him in Japan. He seems to love it. He seems to have new confidence, renewed vigor. Yeah, I'm way into it, and I think he's going to have an incredible match. And that final night is going to be just a tremendous show all around. I mean, the undercard is already shaping up to be pretty good. It's going to be great, and it's going to be one definitely worth watching. And yeah, it's we don't know the final yet, but there's really no scenario where it's anything but a tremendous to great to match of the year contender match. Like, just given who these guys are and whoever you would pick in your top four, any combination of those top four are going to make it. If it's Tanahashi versus Nakamura, if it's Styles versus Nakamura, if it's Nakamura versus Okada, I mean, like, there's so many scenarios where any scenario you get is going to be worth it. And it's going to be great.
You don't think the Young Bucks and Red Dragon are going to go into Sumo Hall for that title match with every intention of using every second they're given to steal the show?
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah.
I mean, those shows are going to be incredible because, same thing with Ricochet and Kushida. You don't think they're going to have every intention of going in there and stealing the show with all these big heavyweight G1 matches going on after them? I mean, these, look out, people. These Sumo Hall shows, I mean, they really shouldn't, but I think they're going to sneak up on people, and I think they're going to be excellent shows. And look at it this way for the first half of this tournament, okay? We've had essentially the equivalent of what under the old formats would have been, 4 or 5 shows in terms of total number of G1 matches. I mean, if I would have told you that through 4 or 5 shows, we'd have a dozen or so, awesome 4-star plus matches, I don't think anybody would complain. It's just the fact that they're spread out. If you're looking at overall quality, it's right there. It's right there with 2 years ago and a little bit behind the pace of last year.
Any final thoughts before we wrap up here? Anything that you wanted to talk about as far as future G1 matches, as far as coverage, anything like that, Rich, before we wrap up?
Not really. I would sort of say I think Joe's on a good point, and I think a lot of people have sort of been hitting this home, is that there's been some people I've seen, not a bunch, but a few people saying, yeah, this G1's not as good, or there's kind of a malaise to it. And I agree. There's a lot of times where you can sort of, the gap between shows, the difference of the blocks or whatever, where people can kind of say, I don't have that same intrigue, because like last year and the years prior were bang, bang, bang. I mean, just every night and this has been more spread out and more of that. But absolutely stick with it. If you're somebody who's went through the first 9 nights and is like, yeah, I think I'm okay. I mean, there are so many good matches still left to go that I think you absolutely have to stick with it and keep watching it. And yeah, if you're trying to watch the entire shows and that's becoming too overwhelming, Joe mentioned at the top that a lot of people are doing this, and I'm one of those that are doing it. I'm missing some stuff with those undercard tags, but I just can't do it. I mean, there's just so much going on, and it's so much to try to do and try to consume all at once. So I've just been watching the G1 matches, and if you do that, I mean, that's 90 to 100 minutes of your life that you only have to use. That's not hard at all. Anybody can do that any single day. So you really have no excuse to either drop out at this point or stop watching or anything like that. I mean, absolutely stick with it, because you're going to get rewarded with a lot of really good matches at the end. Of course, yeah, we'll have coverage of every show, voiceofwrestling.com. If you're interested in discussing the G1 as well, really good topic going on right now in our forums, voicewrestling.com/forums, where everyone's just kind of talking about what they're doing, talking about their pick'ems, talking about scenarios, every single match. We have a bunch of people doing their own little kind of mini reviews as well, which is really cool, and kind of just tons of star ratings, people just rating their matches themselves. So if you don't necessarily agree with the opinions of either, who's ever doing our review, if it's Brian Rose, yourself, Joe, there's tons of people you can go on to our forums, and they're all rating it as well and reviewing the stuff. So it's all kind of fun. There's there's so much coverage going on right now. It's a little overwhelming, but it's a lot of fun, and everyone's just doing, a great job, I think, on the website and in general, our fans as well, and the people that are following us and sticking with us and live tweeting the shows with us. Everyone's enjoying it. It's just been a great G1 overall, even with this new format, even though it's going to be an arduous process to get through, 19 shows or whatever. But I think we're halfway through. We're halfway there. Just stick with it. It's going to be awesome at the end. So it's worth it.
Joe, final thoughts?
I'll give you some quick hitters on the main themes here. Ibushi, number 1, Kota Ibushi, absolutely killing it. Standout performer of the tournament, padding that Wrestler of the Year resume. Mm-hmm. Number 2, Michael Elgin, being so good that he has silenced his detractors. They're just biting their teeth because they can't say anything bad about the guy, and he's been excellent in the tournament. Number 3, Tetsuya Naito, an exciting, refreshing new direction. I cannot wait to see where they go long-term with this guy. Number 4, the demise of Hiroshi Tanahashi was greatly exaggerated. He has put that well into the rearview mirror. Don't want to hear about it anymore. He clearly hasn't lost a step when it comes to these big matches, and he's been right there, as good as anybody, as good as he's ever been, carrying around stiffs like Bad Luck Fale, having great match of the year caliber matches when he's in there with guys like Ibushi. I don't want to hear another word about Hiroshi Tanahashi and his back. Okay, it's very clear that this guy is still doing the high fly flow to the floor like a complete maniac. How do you not love this guy? This guy's tremendous. This Hiroshi Tanahashi, he's something else. Number 5, Kazuchika Okada. He's becoming a man in this tournament, and I really think he's being overlooked. Those first 2 nights against Michael Elgin, getting Michael Elgin over. And then the matches that nobody's talking about, that great match he had against Hanma, the great match he had against Goto, a guy that he never works well with. Okada is becoming a man in this tournament. And number 6, the other big theme is obviously Nakamura. And the state of that arm moving forward, and what they do with the booking moving forward, and whether or not he's going to need a surgery, whether or not he's going to miss a lot of time. Those are the quick hits. Those are the things. Those are the main themes of the tournament so far.
Final thing, Honma. He's at 0 points right now. What does he finish at?
0.
0.
2.
We're not fun. Who do you have? Who do you have at the final night?
He's beating Yujiro on the final night.
Okay.
He's beating him. He's beating him, damn it. Voices of Wrestling
completely shocked me.
Yeah, voicesofwrestling.com, at Voices Wrestling on Twitter. You can catch me at Shake Them Ropes. Big stuff this week. We'll be back. We have an interview, if you're a Lucha Underground fan, interview with Matt Cross, who plays Son of Havoc on that show. We have an interview with him. Joe and myself conducted that.
Unbelievable, Rob.
What?
You're unmasking guys again. You are a part of the Voice Wrestling fan.
Ah, yes, so yeah. The Son of Havoc.
Yes, in case you didn't remember. Yeah.
Oh yes, Havoc's son.
So
yes, we got the interview up with him. Exciting stuff coming on, and of course, New Japan coverage all over the place at voicesofwrestling.com. Thanks guys for joining, and we hope everyone enjoys the second half of this year's G1 Climax.